This episode of The Edge is brought to you by Audible.com, offering more than 180,000 titles for smartphone, tablet, and desktop. To get a free audiobook of your choice and help Trek.fm at the same time, visit audibletrial.com/trekfm. And also by Enterprise in Space, an international program of the nonprofit National Space Society. Find out how you can help science and education and become a virtual crew member aboard the NSS Enterprise Orbiter by visiting enterpriseinspace.org. And if you want to join the conversation and share your thoughts on this episode, join the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type BABEL into the Facebook search field. We look forward to seeing you there.
You're listening to Trek FM.
What have you done out there on the edge of Federation space?
Hello and welcome to The Edge, Trek FM's new podcast about Star Trek's new TV show, Star Trek Discovery. I'm Mike, and today I'm joined by my co-host Aaron. How's it going, Aaron?
It's going well. How about yourself?
I'm doing okay because we're talking about Star Trek Discovery, so
Yes.
That's exciting. All right. And today we are joined by a couple new people to the show, at least. Brandi. How's it going, Brandi?
I am very well. It's Friday.
It is Friday.
When we're recording.
Yeah.
Just temporal plane.
It's exciting. It means nothing to me because I have to work at 8:30 tomorrow morning. But I'm happy.
I'm so sorry.
I'm happy for the rest of you. I'm happy for the world.
I used to be that way. I worked in retail for 20 years, so I understand.
Yeah. And we're also joined by Sarah. How's it going, Sarah?
Hello. It's going great. Thank you.
Yeah. So, the two of you you've both been on the network before, but you haven't been on The Edge since this is only the third episode.
It's very exciting.
But yeah, thank you very much for joining us. And we're going to be talking about some behind the scenes stuff on Discovery today, specifically kind of like doing little mini profiles of the various cast and crew who are working on this here show. Now, I know on my personal show, Stage 9, we do this on sort of like a weekly basis, but I thought it would be a good idea to have it all sort of like consolidated into one little place. And so we're going to just take a look at everyone and sort of, stop and mention some of our favorites, some of the people who were excited about seeing work on this thing. And yeah. So I figure we should start with the writers because, TV is a writer's medium. And that's where all these ideas come from in the first place. So let's go all the way back to the very beginning and take a look at the two creators of this show who, aren't really involved in the day-to-day operations, but who came up with this whole big concept in the first place. Alex Kurtzman and Brian Fuller. So Alex Kurtzman, Star Trek fans are definitely familiar with his work, whether they like it or not. He
or know it or not, maybe.
Yeah, he is one of the writers of the two J.J. Abrams movies, Star Trek and Star Trek Into Darkness. Now, Sarah, we just talked about this the other day. I know that you're a big fan of these movies.
I am. I love them. I think they're terrific. I think that, as I've mentioned before, they really captured the kind of spirit of the original series, which happens to be my favorite Star Trek. So I have no complaints. Were there plot holes in Into Darkness? Yes, there were. Do I care? Not really.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I feel. What about you, Brandi? Are you a fan of the JJ verse?
No. Okay.
Uh-oh.
I have to begin by explaining that J.J. Abrams and I have a very rocky history. And there's only one movie he's ever done that I have liked. And that was Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Okay. So, and I went in prepared to not like it. So, he did win me over there. I wanted to like the first Star Trek movie in 2009. I went to see it on my birthday. And right about the time where they were skydiving down to the drilling platform, I was just like ready to get up and leave. I was just done. And I know so many people love it, and I am grateful for that. And I know that it has revitalized interest in Star Trek, and I'm so glad for that. And I hate watched Into Darkness, I'll be honest. I couldn't even get through it in one sitting. I did it over the course of a week in 4 different periods of about half an hour each. And every time I stopped, I would just come out of the room and I would just rage. Yeah, just rage around the house for a minute. And my husband would just sit there and go, honey, why do you keep watching this? I'm like, I am watching this for the people that are in it that I love. And I'm going to get through it. But again, and it's just about opinions. And in my opinion, no opinion is right or wrong. It's just what appeals to each person. I did love Star Trek Beyond. I really did. It was so good. It produced so many positive emotional responses. I'm a crier.
I cried a lot.
I'm a crier. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And when the Enterprise crash lands, and I'm just like, oh, it's Star Trek 3 all over again. I can't do this. No, it was great. I loved it. So, I am glad that the movies are there, even if I only like one of them. So.
Chris Pine, though.
Oh, Chris Pine. Chris Pine was my first Chris. He was my first Chris of the Chris's.
He's the best Chris.
I can't choose favorites.
Well, Aaron, I think you kind of side more with Brandi in this regard, right?
Yeah. I like the first movie, except for the engine room, which if I talk about will derail the entire show and cause But Into Darkness, no, that was sort of like, I guess it's the every other movie, because when it got to the point where Uhura basically shushed the captain to have an argument with her boyfriend, that's when I'm like, no, I'm done. It's like Uhura has just become Spock's girlfriend. That's not what she is. She's a competent officer, and you've derailed all of that. I don't know. That was just so frustrating.
Yeah,
it didn't stay that way long.
No.
Oh, no. They all ignored that movie happened in the next movie. So she got sleeves. She saved people. But Beyond, I really liked. Where Into Darkness took Wrath of Khan and stuck it in a blender and hit Pulse, this Beyond has as many or maybe more kind of little references to the original series, but they're done in a clever and organic way, as opposed to just, oh, let's take this one thing and flip it, or let's just put this here for no apparent reason, and, triple blood. Like, okay. It's just, I don't know. But I appreciate that it's brought a bunch of people into the fandom, and I appreciate the people who are doing the actual work behind the scenes and in front of the scenes, because they've become an organic crew, just like the original series. You can tell that they love each other and have a lot of fun. So
I'm definitely with Sarah on this one. I think that the J.J. Abrams movies are great. And, you look at Alex Kurtzman and his contribution to those things. Having written, the first 2, or co-written the first 2, that's pretty impressive. And, you look at the other movies that he's written, and you can say, like, okay, fine, he wrote Transformers 2 or whatever and all this stuff, but there's
not the worst Transformers.
You're probably right. This last one was pretty.
I think there's such a thing as a good Transformers, however. So
they just progressively can't walk anymore.
I don't know. That third one was pretty amazing, if you ask me. But I regardless,
I'll give you the third, but
but the fourth and anyway.
However many are there at this point? Was it like
just
there's
4?
5?
Okay. No, there's 5.
Yeah,
last night was 5.
No,
See,
6 if you count
so bad she
Transformers
didn't even
the movie,
realize.
though. Hey, let's not forget the original there.
Exactly.
The original beats all of them by a mile.
It does. The original is so much
Sorry.
better than, but whatever. Anyway,
And it has Leonard Nimoy in it.
It did, but so did 3. Two best have Leonard
that's true.
Nimoy in
Yep,
them. So
you're
there you
right.
go. Anyway, regardless of any of that, Kurtzman, you look at some of the other stuff that he's written, and to me, it's really impressive. I know Brandi will disagree, but I absolutely loved Mission Impossible 3. I absolutely love his work on Alias and, all this other stuff. I mean, yeah, he just had The Mummy come out, and that may not have been that tremendously great. But he's done a lot of really good stuff. And I think, looking at his Star Trek stuff, I mean, I really liked it. And then the other thing which I kind of look at and say like, hey, is Fringe, which is the show that he co-created with a couple of other guys. And Fringe is a pretty awesome show, and, he's got a pretty good track record in television with things like Alias and Xena and Jack of all trades. I mean, come on, who doesn't love Jack of all trades? So yes, I'm happy that he's creating this new show, and even though it doesn't take place in the timeline which he co-created himself. So, but his co-creator here, and probably the guy who had a bit more of a hand in this than him, was Brian Fuller, of course.
So good.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people here are Brian Fuller fans. He got his start on Star Trek, writing a couple of episodes of Deep Space Nine before getting on staff on Voyager and writing such episodes as Living Witness, which I think is my favorite episode of Voyager, and Course Oblivion, which Sarah, I know you were talking about how much you love that.
That's a good one.
And he also created a ton of TV shows which people absolutely adore, including Dead Like Me, Hannibal, Wonder Falls, Pushing Daisies, the American Gods. There you go. The list goes on and on. So, Brandi, I mean, do you have any favorites in Fuller's canon?
Oh, that is, I have a really hard time picking favorites in anything because I have a lot of things that I love. Right now, I'm really in love with American Gods. I did read the book, and to see it visualized and written in the way that it was, it's just been, this is exactly what I wanted. So right now, if I had to pick something right this very second, that would be it, because it's the thing I'm most interested in and close to at the moment. But, ask me once I've finished all the episodes, because I'm a little behind, ask me in 2 weeks and I might say something different. I might say Dead Like Me. You just don't know. It's hard to pick a favorite. They're all good.
They're all really good.
So good.
And I talked about Dead Like Me, but like Hannibal is like a really, really close second for me because I've always been a huge fan of Hannibal Lecter, and Brian Fuller just knocked it out of the park, especially with the visuals. It was just stunning.
In my opinion, so much better than any of the movies.
Yeah, definitely.
So much better.
Just artistically speaking, just the kind of like evocative visuals he was able to put into a television show, which is just crazy. The entire first half of season 3 was probably some of the most experimental television I've ever seen in my life, and you were just sitting there being like, yes, more, please. It's just,
see, that's
so good.
That's really interesting to me because I've still only seen the pilot. And this isn't like I'm like, oh, screw this show, I'm not going to watch anymore. No, it's more like, I need to get around to this, but I'm going to need to like block out some time so I can do this. Because I'm a big fan of the movies as well. And one of the things which really I find striking about them, especially visually, is how artistic they are. So to say that this is more artistic, and more visually stunning than any of the movies, that's a really bold statement. And it makes me really excited to watch this show. Aaron, do you have any Fuller favorites, either in Trek or out?
Well, I do love Pushing Daisies, but I love Wonderfalls. I always like the show that could have made it but didn't. And we rewatch the series constantly. And, it's just like every 6 months or so, it's like, hey, let's watch Wonderfalls. And, we'll have a bunch of people over and we'll watch a couple episodes. And there's just something about it. It's the actress and the way everybody interacts. We've got the guy who ended up being on Eureka, which I thought was funny. Doug, the mouth breather. I don't know. It had a great texture to it. I don't know how to explain it. It's one of those Brian Fuller shows,
No, I totally agree with you because, like when he was announced as showrunner, I watched every single one of his pilots, like just right off the bat. And then I was going to go back and start from the beginning and watch every single thing that he did. And I only got through Wonderfalls, but I did finish Wonderfalls and I loved it, and then it almost feels like Wonderfalls was sort of like a prototype for Pushing Daisies.
Yes.
And yet when I see what they were doing on Pushing Daisies and sort of like the directions that they were pushing things in, I'm like, wow, I kind of like the sweet spot that they hit with Wonderfalls. Like Wonderfalls really seems like it's more my type of show than Pushing Daisies was. But
it's more in the real world, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
it's not, but
right.
It is.
it's like a weird look at reality instead of like an unrealistic sort of like fantasy world. Anyway, I don't know. Whatever it is, I liked it a lot. I totally agree with what you're saying. And one of the things which makes Wonderfalls significant to Discovery is that that's the first time that Brian Fuller worked with Gretchen Berg and Aaron Harberts, who he brought on to be his, number ones, I guess, on this show.
Number ones.
And when he departed, they became the showrunners. So Berg and Harberts, they've worked with Fuller a number of times, including on Pushing Daisies. I guess that was the big thing. But they've also done a lot of stuff on their own and with other people. Like one of their first really big shows was Roswell, which I don't know. Have you guys seen that one?
Yes, I've seen it.
Pieces.
I've seen the whole thing.
Yeah.
It was summer and I was younger and it was on Sci-Fi and I just binge watched the entire thing and I'm all the better for it because I got introduced to Colin Hanks and I'm like, oh my gosh, I love Colin Hanks.
I love Roswell too. I mean, for one thing, I think it's a great show. I mean, you look at Ron Moore was working on it. Jonathan Frakes, who we'll get into later on, he was one of the lead directors on that show. I think it's great, but I also do have like sort of an emotional attachment to it because when my wife and I first started hanging out, that was kind of like a show which we watched together and bonded over, and we went to the Vasquez Rocks. We were thinking about getting married there, and then we were like, it's 115 degrees and there isn't a bathroom for like 5 miles. So no, that's not happening. But, because of that, it's always sort of had like a special place in my heart. So yeah, I really do love that show.
We have a very interesting connection to that show. We were watching it over the summer, and my roommate at the time called us and said that he had been in a car accident. And so we came and got him. And the woman who hit him was an extra we had just seen the night before. She was like a judge at some sort of, I think, a hearing for drunk driving, which was really ironic.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So
life imitating art, I guess.
Yeah. So that was like, why do I know this person? It was just very strange. And then we're like, oh my gosh. Then we saw the name. I was like, yep, that's her. So that was our weird little LA story.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So Berg and Harberts, they've run their own shows in recent years. They created a show called Pepper Dennis, which was well, it didn't last very long, and it's not really available anywhere. I really want to see this show. It starred, I believe, Rebecca Romaine as like a reporter in Chicago and everything. And you can't really get it anywhere.
If it's anything like Rain, stay away.
See, I've only seen a couple episodes of Rain, and I have to say, like, am super intrigued by that show. I think it looks hilarious.
There is
all of it. It's
stay away. Didn't that thing stay on for like 5 years or something?
I know. Like, so somebody had a bunch of angsty teenagers and like an entire wardrobe full of prom dresses from 2003. And they were like, Mary Queen of Scots, right? And you're like, no!
But you watched the entire series?
Yes. I had been recently unemployed. I was very depressed.
Okay. All right.
And I would just stare at it, and the hate and anger inside me would just grow with every episode.
That's fair.
And so you're like, what is even, this is so disconnected and disjointed. I don't understand what's going on here. And it's just really strange. Like, if you're someone like me who's very much into the British period drama scene, like, you've seen this story a million times, and this one is just like, what are you teaching these poor American children watching?
Well, if you look at like some of the newer BBC sort of like where they actually, Robin Hood has a hood, literally like a hoodie kind of thing. The British do that too.
I don't know. Like, to me, like the little bit that I've seen of that show, I think I have the same reaction to it that you do, Sarah. But I think my reaction is like, what is going on? I can't believe they're doing this. This is the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. Until
you get 2 seasons in, and it's just the same relationship drama over and over and over.
That I could see getting.
And then you're like, why are you dragging this out? Like, you can't drag this story out anymore. This is like 2-hour movie tops.
I don't know. I was intrigued. I definitely feel like I need to go back. But there are a lot of people from Rain who are working on Discovery because Berg and Harberts worked on Rain. I don't think they were the showrunners, but they were definitely...
They were producers.
Yeah, but they did do a couple shows on their own. One which I did watch the entire thing of, GCB. It's funny. It's kind of like a Desperate Housewives sort of, thing about a woman who basically she was like the super popular girl in high school, and she was like definitely like the sort of the mean one, and now she comes back home, and all of the people who she used to pick on are now like the high society, whatever in Dallas, and she's the out of work woman who has to live with her parents and blah, blah, blah. And the roles are reversed. And now she learns that, she made mistakes in the past, one of those things. It's amusing. I enjoyed it. There's a lot of, sort of like satire in it and stuff like that. And it's good. It's good. I don't know. It's good. But they did a few other shows.
As long as no prom dresses are involved.
There may or may not be, but they are period accurate. So.
Oh, that's good.
Okay. As long as they're period accurate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if those prom dresses are from the wrong season, no, it will just take me out of the whole thing. It's like, nope, that was from fall 2007, and this was set in fall of 2005. No, okay. I'm just.
The funny thing is,
if
we take any of this conversation out and then replace it with Cage era and all the different. It's like this is exactly the conversation that is happening online about uniforms and ships and et cetera, et cetera. So
that's definitely true. That's definitely true. Just a couple other shows that they worked on. I don't know if anyone's seen either of these. Mercy and Off the Map.
Off the Map was basically take Grey's Anatomy and stick it in a jungle.
There you go. Okay.
I have seen Revenge.
Okay. I've seen some of Revenge too. Mm-hmm. That show looks insane. It's like it looks great.
It just keeps getting weirder. Like it's pretty good. It's a pretty good spy drama. Its one crux and downfall is that all of her spy drama revolves around men she is or potentially could date. You know, that would be my one. I'm like, so you've got this cool chick, but it's mostly, you know, about dating guys.
Yeah.
So it's got some good action and really interesting intrigue and stuff like that. So yeah, not the worst. Not as bad as Rain.
Okay.
Sarah, I'm beginning to feel like you don't like Rain. Is that so?
I think you might be onto something.
I just feel that coming from you. I don't know why.
Whether or not you like it, you're doing a really good job of selling it to me. So I guess we should move on because
we're gonna be here forever.
Yeah. So okay.
Welcome to the I Hate or Like Rain podcast.
let's just run down the rest of the writing staff real quickly. When Fuller left, one of the people who they brought in to sort of help Berg and Harbers is Akiva Goldsman. Now, this is a rather polarizing individual. He has won an Oscar, and he's also written Batman and Robin. And
the Oscar does not balance that out.
The Oscar doesn't, but a lot of the other stuff that he's done does.
I love Batman and Robin.
Okay, see, I love Batman. I love Batman Forever, which he also wrote.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
Okay,
I had the worst possible date on one of those movies.
Oh no! So you do not have good memories.
Go. So you can never. Yeah.
No. To me,
that literally makes it impossible.
Yeah, but it really was. Take that out. It still was a god awful movie.
But he did write some good movies like Cinderella Man, I Am Legend, and he's done a ton of stuff, you know, and continues to, you know, he's got The Dark Tower coming out next month. He does a ton of stuff. He's worked on everything, every single movie ever made. He's had something to do with, you know, I mean, but those are a few of the highlights in addition to like some of the TV stuff he's done with like Fringe, where he wasn't like, you know, an executive producer or anything.
He was a consulting producer.
He was a consulting producer. You look at the episodes that he wrote and directed, they're all like key episodes, like season premieres and finales and like huge turning points and everything like that. And it's like he wasn't there. I get the impression that he wasn't there on like a day-to-day basis, but like he definitely had a huge impact on what that show was and what it became as it progressed. And considering the fact that Kurtzman had a similar role on that show, I get the impression that one of the reasons why Goldsman was brought on to Discovery was because Kurtzman knew what he'd bring to the table and felt that he could really add something to this particular show. So Batman movies aside, does anybody have any favorite or least favorite Goldsman movies or TV shows or anything?
He did Lost in Space in 1998.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen that.
That's a good one.
Actually, I enjoyed that. I rewatched that. I haven't seen it since I saw it in the theater with my husband, and I rewatched it again about a month and a half ago, and I thought, okay, yes, some of the visual effects are pretty ropey, but overall, this actually is not bad.
Yeah.
He co-wrote Practical Magic.
Yeah.
I love Practical Magic.
Amazing movie. Yeah.
I love that movie.
Yeah.
And A Time to Kill and The Client, you know, so, I mean...
He did Constantine. He was the producer on that. I loved that movie.
Yeah.
You know, I did too, even though Constantine was completely wrong. I still love that movie. I own that movie.
It was a great movie.
It's a good movie. Yeah, it holds up.
It really, really does. And I still watch it to this day.
Yeah.
I own it on Blu-ray. I love it that much. So
Yeah. So,
he was a Vulcan Council member in 2009 Star Trek.
yeah, and in Into Darkness.
He was an actor.
Right,
yeah.
and in Into Darkness, he was like a admiral or something. So he's been in two Star Trek movies already. I get the impression that he's a fan. He does a lot of stuff, and he's working on a lot of stuff now too. There's just a whole big article about like all of the projects which he's developing for Paramount, and it's a lot. And you know, one of the things that they mentioned in that article, which confirms what the IMDb says, is he's not only writing but also directing on Discovery, which I think is kind of cool.
Yep.
So. I know like a lot of people like, you know, I mean, we did a whole episode on him and we're like, you know, nerds are not forgiving people and they will hold that Batman Forever credit over him, you know, until the day he dies. But I absolutely love Akiva Goldsman for everything, and I mean, especially Batman Forever, which holds a very special place in my heart, even if it's not the best movie in the world. So I'm super
If
excited.
he had like a clunker or two, it wouldn't be such a bad thing, but he has consistent clunkers along with okay things.
He's got some pretty great things. I mean,
Fringe is pretty great. I think
Fringe,
that's like
Cinderella Man, I Am Legend. I don't know.
I Am Legend was.
He produced The Losers.
Yeah.
That was a good movie.
Yeah.
You didn't like I Am Legend, Aaron?
It had structural issues. I really love the original, the one with Vincent Price.
Right.
So.
Mm-hmm. I really love the story. I love the book, and no one has yet done it right, in my opinion.
But the original ending, though, if you look at on the Blu-ray with the alternate ending, it comes pretty close.
Yeah.
It comes close, but that's not the one they released, is it?
It is now. It is. It's there. It's right
And
there.
it's very
on my
interesting
shelf.
It's
that
there,
there's
but it's
also
not in
the
the public
way-
consciousness.
The way the zombies interact, it looks like it's headed towards one plot that just never materializes. So it's like the way the one zombie kept coming back, you're like, is he connected to the person who's on the table? And you're like, oh, okay, it's like, oh, we're going to learn a valuable lesson that they're now, this is what has replaced humans and that's their family. And that just kind of didn't happen. It's just like, I don't know. There are bits and pieces of it that it came like 80% of the way. And then the 20% was kind of like, eh. But I enjoyed it overall. I mean, it wasn't bad, but I think there's, people are very forgiving of like really bad things because they're fun, and really good things are great. But sort of the in between meh just really gets forgotten. So
yeah, I think you're right about that. But I am in the same boat as you. I wanted to love it, but I still love the Vincent Price one the most. Yeah. That's my favorite version on film.
So let's move on. Because yes, okay. Kirsten Beyer. This is kind of exciting because there are a number of people who used to work on Star Trek who are associated with this show, and they've been pulling them from all different, places in the Star Trek universe, whether it's Voyager with Brian Fuller or the JJ films with Alex Kurtzman, or Kirsten Beyer, who is a novelist. She's written, basically, she's been in charge of the season 8 Voyager novels, which is very exciting, and which a lot of people think, are sort of the definitive story for what happens after they get home. Spoilers for Voyager.
Oh no, they get home?
Sorry.
Oh, why didn't anyone? Oh gosh, now I'm not even going to watch it now.
I apologize. Another person is Joe Menosky, who, did a lot of episodes of Next Generation and Voyager, probably most notably Darmok. But, he's sort of known for doing all of the really, really weird, crazy, episodes of Next Gen and Voyager. And there are a lot of, he's got his own little Menosky cult, which is pretty great. And he,
It sounds ominous.
Cold, yes. Everybody needs minions. It's so fun.
Yep. So any Menosky favorites?
I love Darmok, actually. I was very frustrated the first time that I saw it, but I think that watching it again, as I have several times over the last 25, 30 years. I was 14 when Next Generation started, if that gives you a clue. So it's something that I really, really came to love. Because when you realize what the end is, you can focus on all the other things in the episode. And the frustration between Picard and the character whose name escapes me, and I know what it is, but it's just escaping me at the moment. I'm a terrible Star Trek fan. And how they're trying to communicate and they just can't find that middle ground. And, I still say stuff like that. Like when something bad happens, I'll say, Shaka, when the walls fell. So I love that episode. It's one of my favorites of Next Generation. I don't care what anyone says.
I think most people would agree with you. I mean, people really love Darmok,
Yeah, well, and there's a character in Elder Scrolls V Skyrim that is called Timba Whitearms. So, and I never had come across that character until my 4th time through the game. Yes, I play games over and over again. And I'm just like, what? Timba Whitearms? are you kidding me? And I just started laughing. And then for like every time I came in contact with that character, because she'll ask you to kill bears and bring you bring her the skins, and I'll be like, Timba, his arms wide. Here are your skins. Yeah, not that she heard me, but it's just one of those things that tickled me so great. I was just like, oh, somebody in Bethesda is a Star Trek fan. Thank you.
So moving on, the one other huge name when it comes to former Star Trek creators who's working on this writing staff is Nicholas Meyer. I mean, how do you, I still haven't processed this. I don't know what this means for my life or the universe or, I mean, any of those things, but the idea that Nicholas Meyer, the guy who wrote Wrath of Khan, wrote and directed Undiscovered Country, all of these, not to mention all of the non-Star Trek stuff that he's done. This guy is like a legit genius, and here he is returning to the franchise to write more Star Trek. I mean, is there anything which is better than that? I don't think so.
I mean, he arguably wrote the most beloved Star Trek film of all time, so...
I don't even think arguably. Uh-oh. Did we lose Brandi?
Someone?
We just lost Brandi. She just sent us a message saying that she heard a transformer blow, and she doesn't think her power is coming back on anytime soon. But what can you do? I guess we'll have to keep on going, just like the crew of the original series did in Search for Spock after Nicholas Meyer killed Spock, which is one of the defining moments of the entire franchise, right? I mean, that entire movie, and none of that would be here if it weren't for Nicholas Meyer.
Right.
I mean, it's just so exciting that he's writing again for Star Trek. Anything but for Star Trek in particular, it's super exciting. Yeah. So just to run through very, very quickly, some remaining people who are on this writing staff, because this writing staff is huge, and has really expanded over time. We've got Ted Sullivan, who is a really big fan, it seems, and has written for shows like Supergirl. It seems like his role on the show has really expanded over.
And it looks like he got a promotion as well.
Right.
Look at his
he used
chair
to be,
lately.
He used to be a supervising producer. Now he's a co-executive producer. So
yes,
that's pretty cool.
And he created the internet meme of Jason Gorn,
which is probably the best thing ever.
Yes.
I mean, even if Discovery ends up being a terrible show, it'll be worth it. It won't. It will be amazing, but it will. But
we will always have Jason Gorn.
We will always have Jason Gorn, regardless. So another person who's working on the show now is Craig Sweeney, who is the guy who created the Limitless TV show. But one of the things which to me really stands out is he got his start early on working on the 4400, where he was Ira Steven Bear's writing partner. And I think that's pretty awesome, learning from the best. Not only the best in television, but the best in Star Trek. So that's pretty cool.
And that was a fun show.
It was very good. Other people who have worked or are working on this show include Jesse Alexander and Aaron Colette. They worked with Brian Fuller on Heroes. And then we've got Bo-Yan Kim and Erica Lapolte, who are a writing team who... They worked on Rain, but you know what? I watched their episode of Rain, and I thought it was pretty amazing. I don't know. That episode has a guy, after getting stabbed in the head with like a chunk of wood, like stumbling down a hallway, and it was pretty amazing. And you look at their presence online, and they are obviously huge Star Trek fans. Yeah. So I'm really excited. They've also got a short story coming out, or that just came out, which I really want to read in this book, which is called Empower Mind Over Matter, which is a collection of short stories written by women who write TV shows. Which
awesome.
I think is a really interesting idea.
It's really cool. And
they've got a short story in there. So
and they'll be presenting that at Comic-Con. Actually, I think they're going to be on the floor for a couple hours.
Yeah. So that's really cool.
That's awesome.
I'm really looking forward to that. And then the another person who's writing on the show is Kemp Powers, who's a guy who hasn't written any TV yet, but he has written a lot of everything else, including some plays and stuff. He wrote this play called One Night in Miami, which is absolutely amazing. I highly recommend reading it if you can't see it, which I haven't seen it. I've just read it, but it was awesome. So there you go. That's the writing staff. Okay, let's move on to the cast. Okay, Sonequa Martin Green from The Walking Dead. Now, Sarah, you're a Walking Dead fan, right?
I am, yes.
And what do you think about Sonequa Martin Green on that show?
She is fantastic. There is absolutely nothing to criticize about her performance. Actually, her character on The Walking Dead, Sasha, was written for her. Yes, she originally auditioned for Michonne, but, you know, the people who were making the series just were like, yeah, but we have to have Sonequa. So there was basically a part written for her on the show, and I think that goes to show you, like, not only, you know, kind of acting skill and charisma, but probably also, you know, workability, like how well she gets along with the crew and the creators and the rest of the actors. So, yeah, she is a very good dramatic actress, but she can also portray a lot of joy. So she's someone with that range, and she's playing a character in Discovery who is a human who was raised on Vulcan, by a Vulcan, and that's just such a fascinating concept. I think that she is definitely someone who can rise to the occasion on that.
Cool.
Yeah, I've only seen like the first season of Walking Dead that she was in, but I've definitely enjoyed it, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what she brings to Discovery for sure. Mm-hmm. Now, there's a couple of captains on this here show, including Michelle Yeoh.
She's so good.
She is. I mean, everyone, you know, loves her from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, although I have to say my favorite Michelle Yeoh movie is Tomorrow Never Dies. I love it.
That was a good one, too.
I love it. Any other Michelle Yeoh performances which we might be missing? I mean, Crouching Tiger is the big one, obviously.
Yeah, that's the one that everybody recognizes her from, but she's in a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Like, she's been in films, like, my entire existence.
Yes. The other captain is Jason Isaacs, who, of course, Harry Potter fans will know as that guy with the hair.
Lucius Malfoy, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Which, I mean, he's a fantastic slimy villain.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a lot of people say it's like, oh, he can't play a Starfleet captain, or is he going to be a Admiral?
Oh, come on.
You know, people do have a range. They can play more than one type of character.
Yeah.
Just because you have a British accent does not make you evil.
I don't know. He did also play Ra's al Ghul in Batman Under the Red Hood. So
That's pretty awesome. Yeah, and he also played that bad guy in The Patriot. For whatever
he was also Sinestro in Emerald Knight.
And was it Lex Luthor was the other one? He was like three villains in three DC movies. Was Lex Luthor the other one?
Lex Luthor. Mm-hmm.
That's pretty awesome. I mean, Ra's al Ghul.
He may have been a bad guy in Cars
in Gods and Monsters. Yeah.
So that's pretty awesome. Yeah. So exciting. Now, okay, there's a couple people playing characters who we've already seen in other incarnations of Star Trek. James Frain is Sarek, and Rainn Wilson is Harry Mudd. And I know that we talked a lot about those.
See The Edge episode 2, where we talk about that.
I heard that Rainn was going to be on Discovery, and I'm like, oh, what filthy pervert is he going to play here? And they're like, Harry Mudd. And I'm like, yep, that's exactly right.
There you go.
That is exactly right.
Yeah.
So,
you know, I really like James Frain. He's done a lot of.
He's good.
Yeah. Reindeer Games is the movie I always think of him in. I mean, no one ever talks about that movie, and if they do, they're usually talking about how terrible it is. But I love that movie, so check it out. And then we have a couple of other, fairly big names like Doug Jones. Now, Sarah, you actually recorded something with Doug Jones, right?
Yeah. Doug, my buddy. I love him. I recorded an eldritch horror style radio drama with him and Mark Mears. And he's just the nicest person you will ever meet. He's like one of those guys who, will like put his arm around you and say, oh, I love you, like he's just a sweetheart. He's a big, huge sweetheart, and he is so talented. He's that actor that you love that you don't know that you love because he's in everything. Most, if not all, of Guillermo del Toro's films. Anytime you see like a big monster character in a lot of prosthetics, that's probably Doug Jones.
That's true. Whether it's Falling Skies or the moon guy who plays the piano in those McDonald's commercials from the 80s.
Yeah.
That was Doug Jones?
Yes, it was Doug Jones.
That one I did not know.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. He's pretty great. He's pretty great. And, if you have a weird, crazy alien dude in your movie or TV show, he's the guy to go to.
Sapien.
Yeah.
From Hellboy.
The guy with the eyes from Pan's Labyrinth.
Which is, everybody loves that. Because, see, the thing is, like, he's so amazing with his body. And he's, he can act without saying a word. He's so visually interesting, and the makeup and stuff they put him in is so creative and weird that, he creates characters that people just love just looking at, So he's everywhere. He's the ghosts, most of the ghosts in Crimson Peak.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely, it's almost, it was like one of those things where when I heard Doug Jones was going to be in this, I was like, oh yeah, I'm sure he's been in Star Trek before. No, he hasn't. Wow, that's weird.
No, he has not.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Now he is. It just makes sense. So, Anthony Rapp is another fairly big name who's working on this show. He's probably best known for Rent, where he originated the arguably lead role in that play, and then also did the movie and everything. And he's done a number of other things too. But he's a very good actor, and it's kind of fun watching him on Twitter as he sort of works his way through the Star Trek canon for the first time and is discovering all of these TV shows which we've loved for years, and seeing it through fresh eyes like that, it's pretty cool. And then another big name which is on this cast, at least whatever to us sci-fi nerds, I would say, is Rekha Sharma, who was on Battlestar Galactica in a role which I loved so much. I mean, she is so awesome on that show. It was like one of those characters where it starts off as just kind of like, someone in the background, and, eventually over the course of the show, she grew into becoming literally one of the most important characters in what some could consider to be like the climactic scene of the entire series. And it's just kind of awesome. And I'm sure that one of the reasons for that, just like with any TV show, is they saw what Sharma was doing and were like, hey, let's expand on that, and I think that really kind of speaks to her talent. And I'm so excited that she's on this show, like probably more than anyone else who's in this cast. And I can't wait to see what they do with her,
Yeah, absolutely.
She was in Star Trek Continues.
Yeah, that too, which is definitely interesting.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's just move on to some of these other crew members, whatever. Let's talk about the directors. The pilot is directed by David Semmel, who's sort of become like the pilot director guy. He's the guy who you go to when you need to make something high profile and awesome. He did the pilots for Heroes and Man in the High Castle, which are both obviously very well received. He also directed my absolute favorite episode of season 1 of Dawson's Creek, the finale, which was amazing. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. And he's the guy who's sort of responsible for creating the look and feel and tone of this show. And any Man in the High Castle fans out there?
I do enjoy that show. Yeah. It's good. I was surprised about how kind of it's more slow moving, more like a slow moving drama than it was like a high impact sci-fi show, which I found very interesting.
The book is kind of like that too, or the story.
Yeah.
I need to read that. I need to read it. But yeah, I've definitely been enjoying it. Just simply the look of it too is very striking.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple of other people working on this show as directors, Akiva Goldsman, who we talked about. Mm-hmm. Olatunde Osunsanmi is, I guess, a producer and director on the show, and he directed a movie called The Fourth Kind.
Yes.
Which, yeah, that's an interesting movie. You a fan, Sarah? You liked
I am.
It? Okay, all right, yeah. Cool.
I think I'm very excited for this director in particular. I think he's really talented, and I was very glad to see him on the staff.
One of the interesting things that really stood out to me is that he was like the producing director on Falling Skies during the last season. And the story of how he got that gig, I think, is really telling. Like, he came on in like the season before the last season to direct just one episode. And he did it. He left. That was it. Then later on in the season, there was like an opening because like someone backed out and they needed to get someone to fill in. And the cast and crew were like, oh, you should get Olatunde Osunsanmi. He was really good. We really liked working with him. So they brought him back. He did that episode. And then the producing director, like the lead director on the show, was leaving for the next season and they needed to fill that slot. And because of the cast and crew, they gave it to Osunsanmi. So that to me like says like this guy is very well respected by his coworkers, and that to me is a really good sign when it comes to, you know, him and his involvement with this show. Not to mention the fact that that was like a, you know, rather high profile, you know, science fiction show, and this is too. So that's pretty cool.
He's a hardworking director too, you know. He's a hardworking director and producer, and you know, say what you will about The Fourth Kind, but he can make creepy stuff. So.
That's true. That's true. And then, of course, there is Jonathan Frakes.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just another case of that, you know, like they know that, you know, Star Trek's history has, you know, a lot of talent there, and they're all still working, or a lot of them are still working. And, you know, you've got Jonathan Frakes, whose job it is to direct television, and, you know, Star Trek, obviously, where he got his start as a director, not to mention the fact that Berg and Harberts worked with him on Roswell. You know, they have a good working relationship, as they've all said. So why wouldn't you bring him back to direct an episode of Discovery?
He's Riker.
He's Riker.
He's Riker.
Exactly.
It's like enough said.
Right before we started to record this, Ted Sullivan, one of the writers, had just tweeted basically that some weird expletive happened on the set today, and it was all directed by Jonathan Frakes. So
that's pretty great.
Currently, he's directing right now.
I really want like a behind the scenes video of him sitting in chairs weird on the set.
One day it'll all come out. Yes. Yeah, it's exciting. It's really, really exciting. I mean, he directed First Contact. I mean, come on. That movie's amazing.
Yes.
And then just a couple of other people so far who have directed for the show include Adam Kane, who's worked on American Gods and Heroes, and Lee Rose, who worked on a lot of stuff, including True Blood and Rain. So that's exciting. Cinematographers. The big one here, the thing that I mean, this is right up there with Nicholas Meyer writing this thing. Guillermo Navarro shot the pilot. Guillermo Navarro shot.
So pretty.
He shot From Dusk Till Dawn, Jackie Brown. He won an Oscar for Pan's Labyrinth. I mean, come on.
It's gonna be gorgeous. I mean, even in the teasers trailers they released, like you can tell this looks well filmed.
Oh yeah. It's going to be amazing. Can't help myself. Now, Aaron, you've been in the world of art direction and whatnot. I don't know what the technical term for whatever you do is.
Graphic design.
There you go. That thing. So, I mean, I know that you know of a lot of the people who are working on that sort of side of the production. Who are some of the people who you're excited about?
Some of the people I'm excited about, and I think he's unfortunately just on the pilot, but I think will set the tone for some of the rest of the episode, is Mark Worthington. I saw him last year, like right when it was announced that he was on the show, and he did a lot of sort of the set design and set creation of American Horror Story and Ugly Betty, where it's like basically he takes a room and can change it for the mood depending on what the episode is. And so it's like with Ugly Betty's office, you'd see like that same office, and then depending on how she was supposed to be feeling or what was happening in the show, subtle things would be tweaked, lighting would be changed, and it was really awesome the way it was all able to come together in literally just the same structure every week. So I think if he can apply that to Starship design, that should be pretty interesting.
I mean, he did the like specifically like the Halloween episodes of the Murder House series.
I think so. Yeah,
of
I think that was his first
Story,
actually. Yeah.
And
that's when they brought him back. I think for the
good.
second. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah.
So he's
who else are you looking forward to?
Let's see. In the makeup department, Neville Page, he's the one who has designed Saru, who we've seen. He has done in the past, I mean, there's just pretty much everything. It's like he's worked on all the Kelvin movies, which he worked on Cloverfield with JJ, so he got brought into that and just sort of like, hey, start creating monsters for us. And that, I think, sort of led into him doing, monsters for pretty much everything. He worked on Terra Nova, the TV show, which granted was not, the best show, but had some pretty nice production design. And he worked on a little film called Avatar. Might have heard of.
Just a little one.
Yeah.
It's not like it has a whole land in Disney World.
Exactly. That I still don't understand, because if we're talking about people who are like still going to conventions like Star Wars and Star Trek fans, no one is clamoring for an Avatar convention, or
who knows what strings James Cameron pulled for that.
It doesn't make any sense. But Neville Page, I actually know from a friend who they worked together on the Men in Black ride at Universal Studios, like way back when. So he's somebody I've always heard mentioned. And then when Tron Legacy came out, which he worked on like the some of the suits and some of the props and stuff, which is kind of more his wheelhouse originally. Now I think it's sort of moved into creature design. That's when I met him, because I was covering that as well. And so we've talked back and forth, and he's very good about not revealing any secrets whatsoever, but he is very excited about the Klingon spacesuit that you see in the trailer.
We were talking a little bit earlier, but like, I've seen a lot of internet comments about people being like, oh, what did they do to the Klingons? But like I was saying earlier, like I love it. Like that is what the kind of like look and the kind of suit that I would expect a space warrior race to be wearing. And
it looks like real armor instead of like stuff just sort of strapped on.
Right, like they rolled in a pile of space garbage, like I said. Like I mean, I've always loved the Klingons, but
insulation blanket here.
Yeah. A couple of rivets there. Over there, like, and, but in Next Gen, especially we see a lot of it in the episode where Riker does his little, like, student exchange program with the Klingon ship. They just come off very grotty, very gross, not well kempt at all. Their uniforms are just kind of like stuff stuck all over to them. These look good. They look put together. That is definitely a successful warrior society. The other one, it's really hard to believe that they somehow have conquered galaxy. Like it's just I don't buy it. This though, yeah, obviously intimidating.
I mean, obviously we've seen like 8 seconds of Klingon, so it's hard to tell, but they do seem a little bit more put together. Right. I guess I don't know. It's like I can believe that these were aliens that made it into space somehow.
Right.
Where it's really hard to believe that otherwise. And then related to that, we have Glenn Hetrick. If you watch Face Off, he's another one of the judges on there. And he's doing he's the head prosthetics and special effects makeup. So I think he probably takes Neville's designs and then sort of implements them and helps them put together. And he worked on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Hunger Games, Heroes, going way back, a Babylon 5 movie. So it's like, nice. He's been doing makeup for quite some time.
Cool. And then we've got John Eves, right? Who is...
Yeah, I was going to save the best for last. If anything has been like polarizing in Discovery, it seems to be the ship, the titular Discovery. And it's really interesting if you go on a message board or something and they're just like, oh my God, who designed this ship? It's like they've never watched Star Trek. It doesn't look, it looks like crap.
Guy who designed
and I was like, and my response is like, wouldn't it have been great if they could have, I said, what about the guy who designed like the Enterprise E and worked on Deep Space Nine and like all these? Yeah, why couldn't they have got that guy? Yeah, that is that guy. And then there's silence. So it is so frustrating. And I know on from their end that they're just, it's like you work really, really hard and then you have to ignore it because you would crumble if you had to listen to everybody tear your stuff apart. And sometimes they'll jump into forums and talk, and it's something about the internet just removes all a nicety or something. I don't know what it is, but it's just like, I don't care who you are. It's like, I'm just some jerk on the web and I'm still going to tell you how to do your job. And it's just like, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
It's like they have to find something to be mad about. And I mean, if you look at the Discovery, I mean, how can you not see that as a John Eves ship? That's clearly designed by John Eves. Has the little like smooth triangular type engines on the side, and I'm like, how did you not recognize that? Like literally, like I looked at it and I was like, oh well, no, that's clearly.
And the later ones that has like the punch outs in the saucer section, where you could just see in the poster, that's just that telegraphs John Eves right there.
Right, and it's like just look at pictures. Look at pictures of spaceships. Like, look at John Eves' drawings. This is clearly done by him.
He worked on Enterprise. I mean, but he's worked in now both Prime and Kelvin universes. And he's just creating a John Eves Star Trek aesthetic, I think. So it's, and it's interesting because people will say that, the ship is based off of something that doesn't fit at all. And it's like, we saw in the original series the Constitution class starship. Literally, that is the only starship we ever saw. If you went to a naval base and saw one ship, you couldn't base what every ship in the world looks like based on that. So, it's got a saucer and it's got nacelles. So
and then once we got into like Next Gen and Voyager and Deep Space Nine, like spaceships looked very, different from ship to ship. There was no like, oh, well, they all have to look like this. It's like, no. And I mean, if you look at, even IRL, if you look at like a shipyard, none of those look alike. They're not all exactly the same. Like new things are being added, so I don't get it. I don't understand why they're so angry.
It's the internet, what can you do?
I guess.
And if you look at the old Starlog magazines from the 80s, it's the same thing, just in slow motion of all the people like before Next Gen happened. Oh, why can't there be Kirk and Spock? The most hilarious thing is the time period. It's like, why are they putting it in the far future? There's so many stories. Why not set it during the Cage? It's just like, now it's just crazy because it's like, oh my gosh, why are we setting it during the Cage? Set it in the future, so it's all the future. That's what's kind of funny.
Yeah. It's all fictional.
Oh, that too. Yeah. and you're going back to the Kelvin movies and stuff. It's whether you like it or not, the reason that people get upset about, if they it's not the right timeline. It was like, how many Star Treks have you watched that have, like, they've created an alternate timeline or a change? And it's like, how could that?
All right. Well, obviously, there's a lot of people who are working on this show who are pretty awesome. It seems like they've assembled a really good team. And, only a couple short months until we see what it is when they all put it together.
So excited.
And who knows, maybe we'll see more in a few days when Comic-Con rolls around.
Yeah.
I hope so, there. Yeah.
Yeah. And be sure to come back next week as Aaron and Amy and some other people hopefully recap what we saw at San Diego, and hopefully we can follow up on some of this stuff. In the meantime, it's been fun talking about all of the cast and crew members of this new Star Trek show, but that's not all we're talking about here on Trek FM this week. So here's a look at what you may have missed elsewhere on the network.
Previously on Trek.fm, Standard Orbit.
The inscription of this book is a quotation from David Jarrell, which is something he said to me in an email. And he didn't even remember saying it. I met him recently and showed it to him, and he was like, oh, wow, that's a pretty good quote. I didn't know I said that. I'm like, oh, yeah, you did. But he said the primary philosophy in Star Trek, stripped of everything else, was love one another. I think Jesus might have said something like that once, too.
The Orb.
It's always weird. I mean, say you're watching the original series and, you find out that Dr. McCoy's a real Merle Haggard fan. You know that?
And he might be,
That's
actually.
really strange.
To the journey!
It's his mirror universe.
Oh, is he good?
Really? Is a mirror universe on Suitor?
Is he like super benevolent and just goes around giving money to people?
He was a member of the Terran Rebellion.
Giving out ice cream and kissing puppies.
Primitive Culture. A look at history and culture through Star Trek.
This episode was actually banned by the BBC for many years, and they always said, I don't know if this is true, not so much because of the kind of allegorical significance of the episode, but because of this single line in it where Data he basically says, oh, well, the IRA basically achieved what they wanted in, I think it's 2024.
2024, yeah.
It's coming up.
And that's what else is happening on Trek.fm.
Check out these shows and join the conversation about your favorite corner of the Star Trek universe and beyond. You'll find us wherever you get your podcasts. If you're an Apple user, hit the subscribe button on Apple Podcasts on your iPhone, iPad, Apple TV, or desktop iTunes app. And you can get the latest episodes as soon as they're published. And please leave us a star rating and a written review. If you're not an Apple user, we've got you covered as well. You can find our shows on Google Play Music, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Windows Phone, and most third-party apps. And you can stream and download the MP3 file from our website or grab the RSS link as well. If you want to contact us, you can head on over to the Babel Conference, which is our listener forum on Facebook. Just type the Babel Conference, that's Babel, into the search field on Facebook, and we should come right up. If you'd like to send us an email, you can use the form on our website at trek.fm/contact. Just choose to send to our show, The Edge, and, select that, and then it'll come right to us. You can also find the network on Twitter at TrekFM and on Facebook at facebook.com/TrekFM. So, Sarah, where can people find you on the internet?
People can find me on Twitter at I am Sarah Buck. IAM SARAHBUCK. Follow me on Twitter, and I believe the link to my YouTube channel where you can check out my short documentaries is on my Twitter bio. It's youtube.com/Sarah and Caleb Productions. And then you can read my writing on talkfilmsociety.com.
Yeah. What about you, Aaron?
Well, you can find me on Saturday Morning Trek, which is our animated series show, and we talk about Star Trek the Animated Series and all things Trek in the 1970s. And you can find me on Twitter, user GeekFilter, and occasionally I write articles at Trek Movie.
And you can find me right here on the network doing Stage 9, where we talk about the people who make Star Trek. Hey, just like today. And
what a weird concept.
Yeah. And you can also find me on Twitter at Mumbles3K. If you'd like to help us keep all of our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/TrekFM. That's patreon.com/TrekFM to get all the details. Perks include early access to episodes, exclusive content, producer credits, and more, available through our special patrons website, Patron Zone. It requires a great deal of money to produce, host, and distribute these shows each month. We really appreciate any support you can give us and hope you'll join the team. Again, you'll find all of the details at patreon.com/TrekFM. All right. Well, that was fun. There's a lot of ground to cover, and a lot more to cover in the coming months as we lead up to this show. Thanks to everyone who's listening, not just to this episode, but to all 3 episodes which dropped here on release day. We definitely have some big stuff planned in the future. Sarah, thank you very much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It's always a blast.
And I guess we should also thank Brandi, even though she's not here anymore.
I know.
Hopefully her power comes back at some point in the not too distant future. And
I was waiting for you to ask where we can find Brandi. It's like, well, not on this podcast right
now. And Aaron, thank you very much for co-hosting with me today. And I don't think we've come up with some sort of clever stinger yet, so we'll just say goodbye for now, and we'll catch you next week on The Edge. I'm cutting that out.